All right. Hey, guys. Welcome.
Hey.
Hi, Tom.
We have Steven and Isaac on here with me, and we might have some viewers here in a minute. I'm going to switch over to the control room so I can see the chat. All right. There it is. And I got to make this a different size. If it'll work. There we go. I don't know what is it with Chrome on my though it doesn't like reason. There we go. All right. So what are you guys working on?
I'm just working on that miniature that I started a couple months ago. Just haven't had a chance to play with it much.
Cool.
Yeah, I started trying to do a dwarf here. Haven't made a whole lot of progress just yet, but yeah.
Cool. And we got Jay here as well.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
Hey.
Hello.
Ooh, I haven't used my Procreate in a long time, and it's feeling a little stiff, but I think it'll be okay once I put some aves in it. I somehow ended up with 2 capsules of putty, and I've been using this one for a long time, and it's almost depleted. And I found this one. I'll probably have to just pitch the putty that's in this container because it's probably a year old outside of the freezer. That doesn't do well.
Yeah, it stops mixing real easily. And
yeah, it gets tougher basically. To me, unless you get it really warm, then it seems to be a little better. But well, I've almost finished the next goblin. That's what I'm working on here. He's all baked, all out of Fimo. But with the way how the ears are, I end up I add the last bit of detail on that afterwards with putty. So that's what I'll
looks
do
good
in the chat.
Yeah, looks good.
Pictures in a turn later.
Is that for the Kickstarter, the collaboration you mentioned?
Nope, this is my own thing. This is just to this is going to kind of expand the fantasy stuff that I did last year. So I've got this goblin with the spear. I can't tell if it's there. You go. That I did during Sculptember, and then this guy I was trying to get done right before the end of the year, but I didn't quite. He was almost done, but I still had to do this hood. So I actually did that last night and recorded it. So I'm going to talk about kind of different ways to go about adding like hoods and cloaks, because I know we did that one cape episode, and you can apply a lot of the same effects of that to the what's it called? To hoods, but I think there's some better ways or some other ways to go about doing it.
Okay. Nice.
And we have a comment. This is from First Appearance Hulked. Hey man, how are you? Can I ask you something? Of course, that's what the chat's for. I think you've been on the Hangouts before chatting with us as well, so good to have you back. What's your figure again, Steven? I can't remember. It's been a while.
She's supposed to be
pirate ones, right?
Yeah, she's supposed to be kind of a like a water sorceress.
Oh, cool. All right, so here's his question. Assuming you're he, I don't know. I feel like I'm ready to take on commissions. I was wondering the general amount of time it would take before one of the companies respond once I've sent samples. Well, that could depend on a lot of things. Depends on the company you're reaching out to. I would think that I would hope that any company you reached out to would have the courtesy to at least tell you to buzz off if they weren't interested within a month. So if you haven't heard anything, absolutely feel free to reach back out to them again. But there's not any set thing, and some companies, if they're not interested, they might not say anything at all, just because they might be getting a lot of submissions and it takes time to respond to them. But most of them are good about sending at least some sort of form message if they aren't interested. If they are, they usually will write back soon. The biggest weight you might have, though, is that even if they like your stuff, they might not have a project. So they might tell you that they're interested, but you'll have to wait and see what they if they end up having something or not down the road. Just because I always get asked, this is Procreate putty mixed with Aves epoxy sculpt. I don't like sculpting with straight Procreate too often. It's a little tougher, a little too puttyish. When I add the Aves, it cures rock hard, and when I'm working with it, it feels a little more like the Fimo. It's a little softer. That's how I like. No problem, first appearance hulked. All right, so really all I'm going to add on to my guy here, I've got the main ear form that I put on, but because they're so thin and flimsy as Fimo, it'll stay in place. But if I tried to like put extra material on and add it on and sculpt, it would have pushed them around and deformed them, and there'd be no good way to blend it. So that's why I'm gonna add it on now. Well, it's all hard because now it stays put. I gotta look at this guy for reference. Remember what I did. I had fun doing this little archer guy because he was kind of inspired, at least with the hood and stuff, about the off of the 15mm goblin I did, when I first officially launched this as the Mini Sculpting Super Show. So it was kind of fun to go back and try that same look of the ears poking out, but in a larger scale.
Yeah.
Would anybody get anything gaming or miniature sculpting wise for Christmas or holidays? Anything fun?
I got the those anatomy books. I got actually 3 anatomy books.
Awesome. Which ones? Or some?
The Hogarth.
Yeah, Burn Hogarth.
The 2 you recommended, dynamic figure and dynamic anatomy, and then another one that's just basic human anatomy.
Cool.
Clays. I got some clays.
I didn't really get much gaming wise or sculpting wise.
Me either. I did get something that I wanted for years. It's pretty cool though, but oh, I forgot. I totally forgot. I'm using it right now. I actually did get a new lamp, to a new sculpting lamp. So I've been using that, just one of those articulated magnifying lamps with the circular fluorescent light in it.
Yeah.
And I like it because it gives a nice full light, in a rounded range. But it was kind of a little dim. Not bad when it was just me by myself sculpting, but if I ever had to light anything, like even for the videos, I had to do some camera tricks to make sure that it stood out enough. So I got a new lamp. It's one of those. It's more of like a bar, and so it's got a lot of light that fills out, but it's much wider and brighter overall. So
Cool.
Highly recommend it. It's on Amazon. I can't remember what it's called, but maybe if I remember, I will try and put it in the link in the description. So it's a really good desk lamp if you need more light.
Can always need more light.
Yeah.
Can always use more light, I should say.
But no Necromunda for Christmas. That's what I wanted for Christmas. It's for the best. Other things to do. Plenty of miniatures to still paint for other things. So
Yeah, I think I have for.
What were you saying?
What? Oh no, I think I probably have 20 games that I haven't opened just because I haven't had time. So I was just decided to not get anything until I have time to actually play them. So.
That's a good idea. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, once you start sculpting, you don't. For me, anyway, I found less and less time to paint anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or play. Eventually I'll make time, but I think if I do have the time, I'd rather learn how to sculpt.
Yep, that's where I was for years until I started forcing myself. But I mean, it's all hobby time, so this comes down to where you're going to put it.
Yeah.
Unless you happen to be doing one of them professionally, but I know that's not most people. So, first appearance, Hulk. He got Bees Putty for Christmas. And yes, I do know what that is. That's a good material. It's basically a polyclay, but has some different texture properties to it than Fimo or Super Sculpey. Patrick Keith uses that a lot.
Something.
What'd you order? I think we lost him.
I like the Bees Putty when I tried it on that last figure that I finished. It was nice. I was thinking about ordering some of their triple firm.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to add even after you bake, as opposed to Fimo, where you have to put something sticky down.
Yeah, because it has a bit of a tack to it.
Yeah,
kind of nice.
So in that regard, it was really kind of nice to try. So I might order some of the triple firm and try that.
I'll have to ask you how firm it is if you end up getting it, because I didn't mind the Bees Putty, but it was a little. I like soft putty, but it was a little softer than even I typically like.
Yeah, I think the stuff that I had was the first summer firm, and I had picked that up from Patrick Keith probably a year ago, and it was pretty soft once it got warm.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it at all. It's all that point is all personal preference. Let's see. Yeah, it's kind of a little like wax. First appearance said in the chat, but it stays soft all the time, or malleable. Let's see. Oh, I have to check this to see if this is patrons trying to get on. All right, just a second, guys. I have to check something. Okay. Andrew, if you're watching the stream, I thought I invited you. Let me do it again just in case something went wrong. Okay, I'm going to do it again right now. Yeah, sometimes because I do these invites in batches, and sometimes it seems like they don't all post. So patrons, if you didn't get an invite but you mean to be here, just send me a message, and I will get that going. Okay. So a question from, oops, yeah, I just knocked my guy over. I have a question from Shint B. Hello all, I am currently using Bees Putty on my latest sculpt. It's Summer Firm Extra. I also have Summer Firm, but not had a chance to use it yet. Cool. Be excited to see how the sculpt turns out. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, a few technical difficulties.
It always happens with Hangouts. I love it, but I'm getting it down now, but it seemed like every time we would try and do this, some other thing would happen that would make it not be working.
Yeah, it seems that I can't actually share my screen.
Oh.
So I can't use the ZBrush.
Is it a setting I would have to do?
I'm not sure. When I've tried it out and I had the option to share the screen, but this time it just says you haven't got a camera and that's it.
Oh. That's weird. Yeah, you should totally be able to do it. So you're clicking, let's see, you're clicking that green monitor looking thing with the arrow for screen share?
I totally didn't see that, but I will do now.
Right, try that. Well, I know it can be a little tricky with ZBrush too, because sometimes it wants to hide your taskbars and stuff. I remember having some trouble myself.
Okay. Button saying screen share on it, and I missed it. Okay.
That looks really cool.
Oh yeah, let's pull that up. Very cool. So you like working in the red wax?
Actually, I much prefer the Matte Cat Pearl.
Oh yeah.
I can see more, you know. Yeah, I'm just looking at the sculpts. Sorry, so it's hard to concentrate on what I'm doing and then look at what you're doing. It's that's just amazing, man.
Cool. Yeah, I could never do the red. It hurt my eyes staring at it for so long. So is this a private piece, or are you showing us all commission?
No, my commission was no. So this is just a personal bit.
Gotcha.
My freelance work got hastily taken down just before I started this. I don't want to spoil anything with that stuff.
Gotcha.
It's this person.
Oh, cool. Oh, let's go back. That's awesome.
Yeah, I spoke to the artist. I'm probably going to mangle his name. It's Gediminas Einkus. I don't know, the guy on ArtStation. He was really nice about it. He's like, yeah, go for it. Just do what you want to do. Change what you want to change. So
Very
it's
cool.
really nice to have a go.
Everybody's tools are going clunk, 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 including mine. I need to keep remembering to say this, so if anybody's going to be at Adepticon this year, I'll be there. Both, actually, I don't know if this was happening last time I had a hangout, but I will be there teaching classes and with a booth this year. I'm selling a few of my figures, some sculpting paraphernalia, and hopefully hanging out with people about sculpting.
Nice.
It'll be nice to have a place to be this year, because I'm like at Gen Con and stuff, I usually have worked at someone's booth, and last year at Adepticon it was cool. I taught classes, but between there I just kind of wandered around, and I could see stuff and playing games, but there's no place that I could like just sit down and be if I wanted. So yeah, I definitely should get new Procreate after this, because this is very tough already.
Hard to find that online. I haven't been able to. Where I go, it's out of stock.
Yeah, I think last time I purchased it, I just purchased it straight from Craftmark, the company that makes it. It's not, doesn't seem like it's as widely carried. I know Patrick does carry it, I'm pretty sure. Patrick Keith, so.
Well, he was out of stock too.
Oh, he was out? Okay.
I ordered some bees putty from him today. And I was going to get some Procreate, but it was out.
Gotcha. All right.
What did you say the company was? I had to,
Craftmark with a K. It's kind of hard to just randomly search Procreate now, because you have the iPad app. It's much more popular.
A lot of different results.
Oh yeah, that too. I was trying to look up Procreate, the app stuff, and I don't remember what I typed, but I was like, oh yeah, Google doesn't know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the search history on Procreate putty.
Yeah.
God.
Okay. It's not popping off yet. To make a little arrowhead still. I didn't give this guy a quiver. I thought about it. Figured maybe this is his last arrow. These goblins are supposed to be like scavengers anyway, so maybe he doesn't have many arrows to begin with.
He only had the one. He has to go get it again.
Yeah. There's always a balance of miniatures, because as sculptors, you can develop the skill to put everything on there 100% accurately and everything, but at the same time, these things are tiny and they're supposed to read as game pieces typically. So there's always a balance of what do you put on there. Especially like for you, Andrew, doing digital, it's much easier to put on tons of detail without the size being a factor. So
I don't know. I've tried doing different levels of detail, and I find that my detail seems to stay the same size detail, like the same spacing between it. So it all feels kind of chunky, but then I think the eye doesn't know where to go then if I just put detail in at all different sizes. So I think there's something that like traditional has over digital, that you can just see right there what works and what doesn't.
Yes. Yeah.
So Tom, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When you're making non-human armatures, do you have are you doing just that because doing it, or how do you create those, like a dwarf or say like your goblin or something?
Well, excuse me, dwarf. I have painstakingly researched and done different styles of them throughout the years, and so I've kind of come to a conclusion of the way I like to do them. But the thing to remember with anything is to make sure that it's working proportionally with itself. But a thing like a dwarf's actually kind of easy. I mean, because it's still essentially a human. It's just in this goblin, same way. It's it's the spacing changes, but you still have the arms, you still have the shoulders, and so you can still kind of guide yourself. Where it's might be more of a challenge is even with something doing like a horse, just because you have to do it on all fours. And for that, what I like to try and do, the biggest thing for me whenever I'm building something like that is to establish where, assuming it still has like 4 legs or something like that, establish where the hips are and where the shoulders are. In the case of a horse, that's just the simplified terms I'm using, because and then give yourself lots of wire on the back end, on the front end, for the head, and then for the legs and arms, or the front legs and back legs, because then you'll have leeway to play with that and find the right size. But the key is that kind of front to back of the hips and the shoulders. Once you kind of lock those in, well, if it's wrong, if I make the horse this long, but he really should be this long, well, I gotta start over, pop off one of the segments and start a new one, or move it if it hasn't been too well attached. But that is always a challenge. But yeah, even with something like these goblins and the dwarves, if you're doing humans all the time and all of a sudden you go to something like that, it can really mess with your head. And I don't know about you guys, but I tend to slow down because I have to think and look at what I'm doing a lot more. Whereas when I'm doing a human, I more immediately know if it looks right or not.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just kind of try to base it on the miniatures I have,
Oh yeah.
But I mean,
it's always good to use reference like that for sure.
But I feel like I'm probably missing something too. Well, I don't know.
Well, when you're doing that, at least for me, it's always been a struggle, because you have miniatures that you buy that you like, and then you have what your skill level or even just tendency is for proportions and size, and trying to blend those together. Do you make sure that you're sculpting your miniature to fit in with this miniature's line size wise, or that's something I struggled with for years. Even though I would have certain lines I liked, I would end up just with my style. The guys tended to be a little bit more comic book proportions, which meant their heads were a little bit smaller, or if they were the same size, the whole overall figure had to get a little taller. That's kind of how the Merc stuff ended up being more of 35 millimeter, because rather than 30 or 32, just because they needed to be that height for the proportions to work well and not make the figure look super dainty.
Sure. Yeah, that was actually the dwarf I'm doing. I think. Well, I mean, I think it still looks good compared to what I was, at least proportion-wise to what I was basing it on. But yeah, it did get a little bit taller, I feel like, just because of that. But
I'm surprised too. And I knew this for a long time, but it's only been, I would say more recently, that it's really started to hit me how big of a difference the proportions. Oh, real quick, I just want to say hi to Miko. He wasn't able to join us on the video call, but he's the guy that helps edit all the Mini Super Show stuff.
Yeah.
He's gonna check back later. So
cool.
But anyways, but so for instance, I got some interest here. I got really lucky and I found some old, really cheap HeroQuest miniatures.
Oh, nice.
So these guys We got this pit fighter. These are human-sized dudes, and you know they're pretty chunky proportions because that's what Games Workshop does. Oh, and here's my owl, so we'll use these guys. Here's my owl swords master. Here is the pit fighter, and so the owl sword master, I think I made him to be about. I think I was making him more like 32. So to the top of his head, actually, it looks like he's about 30. He's a little bit crunched down because he's bending the knees and stuff. And this guy, I believe, is pretty much the same height. Yeah, to the top of his head is the exact same height, but he just looks so much bigger because everything about him is chunkier. I mean, his face is about the same height, but just everything is exaggerated. And so same thing with these goblins. Like I look at these and I feel, you know, their heads are decent size, but they're only 15 millimeters tall.
Mm-hmm.
And but they have a presence to them, and that was something I struggled with a lot with like some of these Games Workshop dwarves, because you know I look at these and I figure, oh my gosh, this must be 30 millimeters tall, and then you measure it and they're actually only like 20 something. This guy's on his tippy toes a bit, but I don't know. So that's something I always personally struggle with, trying to find that balance. And it's really frustrating when you're exploring it yourself, because you're trying to do maybe one line, but your tastes are changing or you're learning more, and then maybe you slightly modify what you're doing.
It'll fit together anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know about anybody else, but that was always a huge stress factor for me.
Yeah.
Shint B asked if I ever do large sculpts or busts. I don't really do them. The largest stuff I've ever done has just been monsters for this scale. I do have an armature for one large sculpture that I've wanted to do for years, made like a statue thing, and I hope to be able to work on that and do that, and I'll record it whenever I do sometime in the future, but it'll be a bit, and it'll probably just be for fun, because I mean, I guess I could try and garage kit it, but to make copies, but I don't know. I just really, I love miniatures. I like playing. I like making stuff that I can play with. You know, it's cool to have stuff on the shelf to display, but my passions are really a lot with the gaming of it all.
I've never actually played anything.
There's more people like that than you think.
I find that the time that I do get, I sit down and start sculpting, and that's it, the time's over. But to sit down and try and play something, everything feels far too long.
Let me ask you, so what drew you to sculpting miniatures, you know, rather than just sculpting, or even sculpting in general?
Is it still a midlife crisis if it feels good? It's not a red sports car, but it's the feeling of, like, you know, when you were younger and you remember certain things which made you happy. I remember staring at some early 90s like Games Workshop stuff, and just I could never really afford the armies and didn't really know how to play, so I kept staring at them and my mind would go everywhere. And I think that's what I get from sculpting them. I can still do all the things, have all the stories and the lore in my head, but I don't have to. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't have to roll for initiative while I'm doing it. I can just do it, you know.
That's the exact reason that I have an almost complete collection of Marauder Games Workshop dwarves right now. Recently,
they really
trying to recapture everything I couldn't afford when I was a kid.
I mean, they're still out there for price wise. So
yep. Yep.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people are really into the games, you know, and it's this and this, and I just genuinely don't really know too much lore. I kind of just love the form, which.
That's cool. Well, you don't have to. I'm always curious to hear what draws people into this specifically, because so many people that I encounter are like, what's miniatures? I mean, you know, they maybe have heard of toy soldiers and stuff, but they don't really know it all. And then it's always interesting to meet sculptors that, you know, maybe don't even play it, but
I feel like if I had like a smaller well, like actually, sorry, a larger threshold for embarrassment. I might do it, but I feel really self-conscious, kind of, you know. The whole Dungeons and Dragons thing is, yeah. Gonna have to do that on the computer again.
It's kind of a dream of mine to actually play Dungeons and Dragons because I could never find anybody as a kid growing up to play that game with me, and I always really wanted to. And I was too young to understand the rules by myself. So
yeah, it helps to have somebody show you or teach you. I don't think I ever read the whole book. I was fortunate enough to have friends that knew how to play, or their older brothers did, and stuff like that. I was always.
Somewhat...
Oh,
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead. No, I talk too much. Your turn.
I was just gonna say that somewhere there's probably like a basement with a load of middle-aged people being bashful, trying to learn Dungeons and Dragons and not feel weird about it. You know? Like
anonymous
really,
group.
yeah, like a fight club, but kind of with more tea and biscuits, that kind of thing.
It's fun.
I have played Dungeons and Dragons, and I did enjoy it to a degree, but I've always been more of a strategy gamer, building big armies and lots of toys. That's what I'm in it for.
Yeah.
My kids play it though. They want me to try and run them something someday, so I might. It's a lot of work running a role-playing game though. It's a hobby in itself.
Yeah, I used to write stuff that never got played. I had all kinds of manuals.
Yeah, that's gotta be sad, disheartening.
Well, it was fun though. That's why I did it, because I was like, oh, if I can never get anybody to play this, it'll be great. And all kinds of stories. And then when I got about, I don't know, 25, 30, I was like, man, this stuff is just taking up so much room. It never gets used. And I gave all my manuals and handbooks away. And even my die size thing.
Oh, wow.
But again, it was never being used.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's just, I was thinking the other night, I was like, man, I just wish I had that stuff just to comfort my mind.
Yeah, that's a weird feeling. I've been going through a lot of that recently, and I go in these waves where I fight off the urge to get anything new, and then I'll kind of like fall off the wagon and buy a bunch of old books that I used to own or always wanted to own, and then I still haven't read them, but at least they're on my shelf. I don't know. It's definitely a midlife crisis. Shint B has also never played tabletop games. That's all right. And like everybody said, if you're really trying to apply yourself to sculpture, not that you can't play those things, but you know, it takes a lot of time to learn sculpting and apply yourself to it. So
My thoughts are when my daughter's, not a toddler, and I can, whatever activities can maybe be playing games and stuff.
yeah,
Definitely can't sculpt with her. So.
There's a lot of great, fun, and great looking kid board games out there these days too. That aren't just Monopoly.
Right, I bet. Yeah. So.
Oh, no.
Was one thing, the GW game, the Shadespire, maybe? It's like seems like a simplified one, kind of.
Yeah, it's like it's you play 3 turns, little battle arena thing.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody saw that. I thought if I was going to get into that, it would probably be that game, because it'd be simpler, but I don't know.
Fewer miniatures, and it's supposed to be really fast.
Yeah. Those are kind of fun.
see if there's anything else I need to plug up on this guy. I think I've got it all. I really need to finish banging these out. They don't take super long, but.
Will these be on your site, Tom, or are these just?
Yeah, they'll be on my site. I'm debating. I think I'm gonna try and get a little group of them ready for Adepticon. I don't know if they'll be able to be molded in time by the time I finish sculpting them, but I'd like to try. I'd like to have something else besides just the figures that I made last year. So, but. All right. Well, he's done, so now I have to move on to something else. Probably a weapon for one of these little guys. Let's see. Is anybody falling into the New Year's resolution trap or inspiration?
By failing or making resolutions.
I think I gave up on that. So I always try to, do good in life. I think would be my plan. I don't know. I think specific kind of never works out. So
yeah. For me, I haven't made any resolutions, but especially since Adepticon's coming and things like that, and I've got some projects, I have been very proactive in making, I don't even want to call them goals. I guess more of like a schedule and, I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but schedule and a priority list and stuff just to kind of keep me on track and moving towards those things. Maybe it helps that is because resolutions tend to be things like, I want to get in shape. They're very general and stuff, and things I've got immediately to do are things that must be done. So I think that's one thing. Yes, and most of them have to be done by March. So it's like they're either going to happen or they absolutely aren't, and I'm going to know pretty quick.
Yeah.
I did find a cool thing. Go ahead.
I made a list, like yourself, of stuff that I really want to kind of achieve. With me being fairly new to this, I'm trying to set out like, okay, I need this in my portfolio. I need this, and I'd really like to, by the end of it, have done this many, freelance jobs, rather than just straight out go like, I want to work for this company, and I'm not going to stop until I get there. It's got to be actually achievable things where throughout the year you can feel successful.
True, and you have no control over whether you could be the best sculptor in the world and somebody could never hire you, right? Just because for who knows what reason,
Don't say that. Oh, stop it! There's just things you can do for yourself, which is, I really want to get fabrics down because it's like a large spot for me. Anatomy to be able to do it without reference, just like blocking in.
Yeah.
Not like straight out sculpting, but just blocking anatomy without reference, having some shortcuts, so I can better quote people on time. So I can better say it's going to take this long, this is going to be this long, like that. It's a bit more sort of reliable professionally, I think.
Yeah. How did you end up getting into ZBrush? Did you have training in that from the past, or did you just decide you wanted to learn to sculpt and it was going to be through ZBrush? Or
I did my degree in character animation, I think around the time that everyone was doing character animation. Before the industry kind of went, no, we don't need any more character animation. And I got disillusioned with the whole thing. But one of the assignments at university was to make a character in ZBrush, and so I I really love what ZBrush can do, but I find it one of the most unintuitive programs I've ever seen. So it's kind of, it lets you do whatever you want, but you really have to know and put the time in. And I think there's something sort of slightly cathartic about that. You know, have to sort of earn the respect of the program almost. But yeah, so like I think maybe 8 months back, I just decided that this was going to be something that I was going to do and just keep doing. So yeah, I got one tutorial, and then just kept duplicating like made a head and then another head, then a whole body, and then just kept going and kept making them.
Cool.
That was pretty much it, really. So I'm doing like a load of things the slow way around. Like if anyone's seeing this, they might be looking at it going like, no, you don't do it that way. Is you press these 2 buttons and it's done for you. But I might get there eventually.
I'm sure you will.
You use ZBrush though, don't you?
I do. I haven't in a while. I plan on getting back to it, but that's one of my goals. That's one of my post the first 3 months of this year goals, because I've got lots of other things that don't involve it that I need to focus on. So, but I do want to get back to it. I've done several small sculpts in it, but yeah, it's been a while. I actually think I realized I think I haven't sculpted in it since July.
Oh.
So I'll have to refresh. And I've never used the new one. So I don't know anything about how to use the widget except for this one video I watched real quick.
Have you used any of the 3D software before?
I have used Blender.
Okay,
that was a long time ago.
It's the gadget. It takes it's like a little bit of getting used to, but it's so much easier than the old move tool.
The transpose line?
Like yeah, the transpose tool, because you're not dragging away into unknowable axes. You just you can control it, and if you just hold down Alt, you can move you can shift the pivot point wherever you want. So you can move it really quite quickly.
Cool. Maybe it'll have worked out for the best, because I haven't not sculpted completely since July. I have messed around just a little bit, but I haven't tried to make anything for real. So I'm sure there'll be a little bit I'll have to pick up back up on. So maybe it'll be good that it's been so long. I can kind of start there fresh and not feel like, oh, I wish it was the transpose line still. Like I heard a lot of people say that when it first came out, but
if you press Y, you get the transpose line back, so you can toggle between the two of them. So you still got it. But if
that's good.
Michael Pavlovich does like a ton of ZBrush videos, so he's done a whole thing for 7 or 8. So if you have a look at those, they'll be great.
That's actually the one widget video I had watched, was like the first one in that series. And I was like, you know what? I need to watch this one. I'm actually going to be doing this again, because I'm going to forget it all again. He's amazing.
He absolutely is. He's just phenomenal. But,
cool.
Sorry, back on the whole minis thing. So do you find that like most of your work that you get is traditional stuff, and the odd occasion it becomes digital?
It depends. I don't take a lot of work anymore. I have a couple clients that still prefer traditional, but I know Reaper prefers digital. I think they'll take either, but they do, a lot of their sculptors do digital, and one of my other main clients, they only want digital. So it varies, but I know there's a lot of people. I don't think that there's one over the other. I think some people just have figured out in their workflow that they would prefer digital. Okay. And obviously, a lot of those tend to be people that are doing plastics. They tend to want the digital. That, or if they have other overarching plans where they want a lot of iterations, it can be easier to have a digital sculpt, to modify. And
yeah, you might be able to get units out faster a little bit. If you have to just small variations on it. At the same time, I think I've seen some digital work that sometimes it looks a little bit lifeless, because it looks like it's been like a mannequin. Like, I mean, I'm posing in a pose here, but this is the first time I've done this for sculpt, because usually I do everything asymmetrically, because I find that it has more rhythm, or I can I can feel the weight on it better. This is just to try and push myself to learn how to do it this way, and then change the pose and change the pose. So if I was given a unit, I could, you know, confidently say, okay, yeah, no, I'll just do one and then duplicate it.
Absolutely. That's always been the struggle for me in ZBrush, is where to draw that line, you know, because it's so tempting to do everything in an A pose or a T pose, and because I can reuse it, it'll be so easy to do a ton of stuff, but then you end up wasting a lot of time. So I think it's kind of important to know if that's what you're going to do, and if you're not absolutely sure that's what's going to be done, you know, sometimes it's better to just do it asymmetrically and get on with it.
Yeah, that's yeah, getting on with it. That's a whole different conversation. But I'd like to see how you kind of approach. I mean, I don't think you can really sort of fart around too much with traditional, can you?
No, a lot of times when you do that, some of the tricks are maybe similar. You know, you make a dolly, which has, you know, the proportions obviously, and maybe certain detail elements. But a lot of times what you'll do is you'll either sculpt one sculpt and then you'll convert that, you know, add different weapons, add different helmet, or if you need everything to be the same, maybe you have certain bits that you reuse, the weapons, helmets, maybe a chest plate and things like that. But yeah, it is a little more difficult.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to hog the floor. Anybody else can have a crack.
No, it's good stuff to hear. I think the reason I started sculpting is because I spend too much time in front of a computer, you know, at my job. So I don't know, maybe someday, but yeah, probably by the time I get good enough to sell something, they'll only be accepting digital stuff from places, you know.
The good news is, unless something drastically changes, most companies still, when they're doing a 3D print, they have to have it molded exactly like they would anything else. So,
okay.
I mean, that could change someday, but
yeah,
I think there will absolutely phenomenal stuff on ArtStation from like people like Patrick Masson and
oh my gosh, yeah.
And that's all, obviously it's all traditional, and it's got so much life to it, and it looks so tactile, and you know, it's just, I think that I don't know, I just don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think I think it's going to be one of those things that's always, you know, you'd always get employed if you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw his stuff for the hate board game on Instagram there. Unbelievable stuff. Just really, really beautiful art there.
One thing I like ZBrush for the most is sculpting weapons. I hate sculpting weapons in real life.
I saw your video on it, and you made it look really straightforward, so I decided to try and have a go at an axe, sculpting it. Turns out that no.
In real life, or in ZBrush, or in
green stuff.
Oh.
I got a print of a little dwarf that I made, but when I sent it to Shapeways, I did totally the wrong size. So the backpack came back the same size as the dwarf. The dwarf came back the same size as the axe, and it was like, oh, it was an expensive but I think valuable lesson. So I tried to I reconciled myself to just being able to say, okay, I'll do it in green stuff, like it wasn't a thing. I went really purple, and it kept sticking to me. And I decided that I would just add a little bit of time over the course of about like 4 to 6 months. So it'll be done maybe next year, I guess, when I yeah, ZBrush, that's just better for me.
Axes are tough, I think. I usually have some kind of armature under them too. You don't necessarily need it, but I'm always worried they're going to snap off if you don't have some more understructure, especially if they're larger. Well, that's pretty good. I'm going to file it down once it cures. I did finally I finished these. I have two painting. This is painting. This is just to kind of expand on the hobby and maybe goals. Because one of the things I wanted to try and do is get back into gaming a little more, and especially painting miniatures. So this is actually one of the reasons that I slowed down a little bit, because I bought the new Games Workshop game 40K thing, and I painted my first 2 Space Marines in years, and I thought it was turning pretty good. Transfers are a little bubbly.
Yeah, even is that a custom insignia on the?
This, yeah, well, it's a transfer. This is a transfer, so it's, you can't tell. It's a little bubbly. I'm hoping when I spray this down with the matte finish, the dull coat, that it will. This won't focus. That it will take away some of the sheen, because the rest of the miniature is kind of matte looking.
Right.
But I just have to paint on a little marking on the shoulder and shin pad. I might just leave it. That's something I'm also trying to teach myself, is to not take. I mean, you can do a good job without spending forever painting. Because especially when you're trying to do an army, I don't know, unless it's all you're doing, your only hobby. You can't spend the time to make it look like the greatest thing ever. I'd rather spend that time making a miniature look great, sculpting one.
I've been watching videos in preparation for painting.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a set of paints that I bought. Them open. They're still packed.
One of my
it's a fear. I don't want to. I want to make something that looks good. I don't want to complete it and go, it looks like, I did it in grade school.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't really paint either.
Especially when you get
a handful.
Yeah, when you get a miniature you really like, you don't want it to get ruined when you paint it. Well, there's 2 things I can recommend for painting. One, Sean Sutter has a great video on his website that is actually a really quick and easy way to paint your miniature to make it look great on the tabletop. And I've seen his stuff done with this technique, and I think it's better than most of the time what I do when I'm trying. So that's kind of funny. But so there's that video. I'll try and put that in the description. And then the other one is a guy named The War Gamer, all 3 words, and the techniques he uses, again, his paint jobs are really good, but even if you're not good, you can follow them and get some really nice results. So I'd suggest those if you ever wanted to feel a little more confident. If nothing else, just get a miniature you don't care about. Just, that helps too, because then you're not worried that you're ruining, some character model or something that you want to.
I don't have any that I don't care about. All of them. I can make a blob. maybe try on a blob or something.
Maybe a blob, or
of...
if you can find some cheap plastic miniatures, you know, in a lot for like $10. Maybe there's like 10 or 20 guys, and you have no attachment to them. You're just gonna use them to try that. Those are good to have anyways, just for testing out color schemes and stuff. Because those two miniatures I just showed you, actually, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to paint the guys, so I painted them both with two different techniques, and they ended up looking pretty close, but it gave me the chance, and that gave me a lot of stress, because I was like, shoot, these guys are all going to be on the tabletop. I can't throw any of them away, so I hope one of them doesn't turn out really bad. But they both turned out okay. So same way with sculpting, though, for me at least, you know, trying to move on and jump on to the next part. Just gotta go for it sometimes.
Yeah, and that's just what you got to do. You just have to go. You have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just
sculpting,
static, nothing happens.
Exactly. I'll show one more thing that I found before I go, and maybe this will help incentivize you if you want to paint. But I think it'd be really cool to make one of these, maybe for next year, for sculpting, because this is the War Game Hobby Bingo. And so you try and get a bingo, or maybe you do them all if you're really into it. And it's just got all these different things it tells you to do, and you just try and make a 5 in a row in some way. It was interesting though. I was reading all of them, and I was like, okay, I could go this way. I'm like, shoot, I'm never going to do that. And I was like, well, what about this? Oh, nope, that one, I'm not going to do that either. Well, not that one, because that's a sculpt something on model. That's easy for us, right? But you know what I mean. But this is pretty fun. I can't remember where I found this. I think it was on, somebody posted on Facebook. Oh, here's the link. robhawkinshobby.blogspot.com. So if you want to download this and see if you can do hobby bingo this year as a goal or a resolution, try it. Or just keep sculpting if that's all you care about. Oh yeah. What'd you say?
That just sounded mean.
Shouldn't be recommended. I can't remember how to pronounce his name. Sorastoros painting. He's really good, and his techniques, yeah, they actually don't seem like they're crazy difficult either. But oh, he said he spelled it wrong, but he's really good. He's got some amazing videos where he paints all of the zombies from Zombicide Black Plague, and he does this really amazing. Oh, here it is, Sorastros. He does this amazing dip technique where he's basically just doing flat colors, dipping it in this staining lacquer from Army Painter, and then just touching it up a little bit, and they look awesome.
I was curious about that stuff. It comes up on Amazon when I buy other things. I was thinking, I don't know about that. Just dipping it in, but yeah.
Well, he's got videos. I mean, I think he shows what it looks like just with the dipping, and it looks pretty good. Cool. And then he does just a little bit of cleanup and accenting afterwards, and they look really good. It's really surprising. So, but anyways, well, thanks for joining me on the Hangout, guys. Thanks for being patient since it didn't work last week. Yeah, we'll still try and do one towards the end of this month as well as normal. But I'm glad we could make it up. So,
great. Thanks, Tom.
No problem, guys.
Thanks, Tom.
It's been great.
Well, have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.